Hi there, my name is Vinod. I'm going to present you today on how to export and import the model repository service objects using the infacmd command line program. And this is applicable to the data services data quality 951 component. So here is the agenda for the video today. So I'm going to explain briefly about what is new command line program, export objects and import objects, and how are the control files come into the picture for both export and import process. And I'm also going to show you on how to export an object and its dependency using the infacmd OIE export objects, and then do the import using the infacmd OIE import objects including its dependency. So all these export objects and import objects are equivalent to the operation that you do from the GUI tool, but the main reason I'm the presentation today is because this has a lot of tricks and tech which needs to be implemented mostly for an automation purpose. Like if you use this command line program, so user doesn't have to manually go to the GUI every time and then export and import projects. So people can obviously automate this export objects and import objects, and then people are all set. And I've created a model repository service, and then you can see there are a couple of projects. So I've already created a project called Vinod, and then if you see inside, I've created a physical data object, and then I've imported a table called integrator, and then I've used that integrator relational data object in this mapping. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to export this particular mapping along with the physical data object, and then in the mapping, if you see, I've used a reference table. So along the export process, I'm going to export this particular reference table. If you see in the mapping, I have a standardizer transformation which uses the reference table, and the reference table is located in the shared_win directory. So the table name is called data validation. So I'm going to export this particular mapping along with the relational data object plus the reference table from a different project. So I've logged into the Unix server where my Informatica services are running, and I am moving to the directory where the infacmd command line program is available. So which will be in default infahome/isp/bin. So if I do an ls-lrt, you would see an infacmd command line program. So I've already written an infacmd OIE export objects command, which is gonna actually export the mapping which I showed right now along with the reference table to a file called the validation.xml, and the control file which I'm going to use is nothing but exportm.ctl file. So before running this command, I'll show you how the control file looks like so that you'll get an idea on what I'm talking about. So the export file which I named is exportm.ctl. So when I do a cat on it, so when I do a cat on this exportm.ctl file, you can see how the taggings are done. So basically what I'm doing from the developer tool is like I'm just going to export this mapping. So for that purpose, I need to specify what I need to export along with its dependencies. So by default in the command line program, if I export, for example, I'm saying like from this folder, I'm gonna select all. So that means all of the dependencies will be exported to a file along with the reference table, along with the physical data object that is being used as a source. So this is the tagging folder. If you have any folder, right now I don't have any folder, so I've just left it. And then what is the category? So I'm going to select all of its dependencies, and then the object list type is the mapping, and the object name which I'm going to export is the mapping validate, which actually you can see it here from the developer tool. So for example, if you're trying to export mapping using the command line program, and if you don't specify any of its dependencies, by default all of its dependencies will be exported to the file. So this is the command which I'm going to execute now. So the command got executed successfully. You can see the list of objects that got exported. It actually exported all of its dependencies along with the mapping, and it can actually say a little bit in detail like what is an RTM. RTM is nothing but the reference table which it's got exported automatically, since mapping used that particular reference table as a standardizer. So now I have the validation.xml file in this home directory where I can use this file to import the same metadata, that is a mapping into a different MRS or into a different project. So I'm going to import the same exported file into a model repository service under a different project names. So as you can see here, I've just executed the command, and it says the connection binding was reinitialized because for the reference table it's gonna rebind the connection. And then I can see these are the messages which confirms that okay, the imported objects went fine without any issues. Now I'm going to show you how I've used the import control file, which is very important. So here you can see I have done a cat on the control file that I used to successfully import the mapping into my model repository service. So basically I need to actually associate what is the source project and what is the target project, and then the mapping. So if the mapping has any dependencies, like it has a source as a relational data object, so I have to specify that as well. And then the main important thing is the mapping uses a reference table as a standardizer, so I have to specify which reference table and what is the type and the name of it, and then which project I want the reference table to go into. So once all that are specified, I should be able to import it successfully. And one more important thing is at the end of the control file you do see the rebind map. So what basically means is any kind of a connection that you used in the export file, if you want to import that into a database, then you need to rebind which connection the object should go into. So in this particular mapping I have used a reference table. So the reference table connection binding is going to use a staging DB when it's get imported into the target. So that's the definition of this particular control file. If you want more information about the control file, it is very well documented in our 951 command reference guide. So I'll show you the command line reference. So when you open any command reference guide from 951, right, so these are the command programs that and its explanations, but when you scroll down you would see infacmd control files. When you click on that, so these are the basic. I'll actually increase the font size. Yep. So actually what we are doing is exporting the model repository object. So you need to look for the control file examples specifically for the model repository objects. So when you go there, so everything is documented correctly. So you can look at it. So how to export, and there's very well good examples, so you can take a look at that as well. If you want more information on how the control files are used while exporting and importing dependencies across the projects, then I would suggest you to take a look at the Informatica Knowledge Base article 1455057. So there is a snippet of the error message, and to avoid that we have explained on how to use the control file in order to provide the dependencies information to you for the import process. So this is just a sample, so you need to use it according to your environment and specify the object type and object list accordingly. Alright, thank you very much for listening. We would love to hear from you, so if you have any kind of a feedback, please email us at supportvideos@informatica.com and tweet us at twitter.com/infosupport. Thank you very much for listening, and have a wonderful day. Thanks.